Today's subject is a man whose charm filled nightclubs, whose voice topped charts from coast to coast, and whose face lit up both the big screen and the smoky stages of Las Vegas, Dean Martin. He was the voice that crooned America to sleep and the face that redefined cool in smoky lounges and silver screens. But behind the velvet tuxedos, chart-topping hits, and sold-out Vegas residencies, Dean Martin's most lasting legacy didn't come from fame. It came from family. While the world hailed him as the king of cool, Dean quietly raised 8 children, each one navigating the spotlight not as an inheritance, but as a shadow they had to outgrow. Today we uncover the story of a man who balanced Rat Pack fame and Hollywood excess with the quiet rituals of fatherhood. Sunday dinners, late-night phone calls, the same corny jokes repeated with love. He became a father in the middle of war and showbiz, long before his first gold record. While audiences saw the swagger and the scotch, his children saw something softer. A man who would finish a 2-show night and still make it home for bedtime stories. He wasn't perfect. Marriages ended, mistakes were made, but to his kids he was never a myth. He was just dad. And in the end, long after the lights dimmed and the applause faded, Dean Martin wasn't remembered for the martinis or the Rat Pack bravado. He was remembered for the way he loved his children, quietly, consistently, and without fanfare. This is the story of Dean Martin and what happened to the 8 children of the King of Cool. The first child, Craig Martin, was born in 1942 into a world already orbiting fame. Unlike some of his siblings who gravitated toward music or the spotlight, Craig chose the background, building a quiet, steady career as a television producer. He worked on The Dean Martin Show and later on Sha Na Na, staying close to entertainment but away from the glare. Growing up with a father who was a global icon taught Craig 2 things: how show business worked and how easily it could consume a person. Rather than compete with his father's charm, Craig embraced stability and professionalism behind the scenes. His personal life, however, wasn't without pain. His wife, Carol Costello, daughter of famed comedian Lou Costello, was tragically killed in 1987 by a disturbed man, a devastating event that Craig faced in private, away from headlines. Having Dean Martin as a father gave him opportunity, but also a shadow he chose not to live under. Craig's life reflected quiet resilience, a man shaped by celebrity, but never seduced by it. Claudia Martin, born in 1944, was Dean Martin's second child and the first of his daughters. Growing up during her father's meteoric rise with Jerry Lewis, Claudia was surrounded by cameras, rehearsals, and studio audiences before she even finished grade school. Unlike her older brother Craig, Claudia stepped into the spotlight, briefly, following in Dean's footsteps with appearances in a few television roles during the 1960s and early 70s. But while she inherited her father's stage presence, she never chased celebrity in the same way. The Martin name opened doors, but it also came with expectations she never fully embraced. Her acting career was short-lived, and she eventually stepped away from Hollywood entirely. Claudia's personal life was marked by both love and instability. She married actor Keel Martin in the early 1970s, with whom she had 1 child, Jesse. The marriage didn't last, and neither did the next 2. Like many children of Hollywood royalty, Claudia lived in the tension between public perception and private struggle. Having a father known for effortless cool and charm didn't shield her from life's messier chapters. It may have even made them harder to navigate. Claudia spent her later years away from the spotlight, living a quieter life until her passing in 2001 from breast cancer. While her career never reached national fame, her story mirrored that of many celebrity children. Brief flashes of attention, followed by a long search for peace outside the shadow of a legend. Gail Martin, born in 1945, was Dean Martin's 3rd child and second daughter, a middle child caught between her father's megawatt stardom and the quieter lives of her siblings. From a young age, Gail was drawn to music, not just because her father was a household name, but because the stage felt familiar. She occasionally performed alongside Dean in Las Vegas and made appearances on The Dean Martin Show, her voice echoing the same laid-back charm that made her father a star. Yet despite early promise, Gail never launched a solo career of her own. For her, performing seemed more like a way to stay close to her father than a personal ambition. The Martin surname gave her access, but it also boxed her in. Gail was seen as Dean's daughter long before anyone asked who she really was. She lived comfortably but privately, steering clear of major Hollywood dramas and staying outside the tabloid spotlight. Little is publicly known about her romantic life or whether she had children, a testament to how intentionally she protected her privacy in contrast to the fame-tinged chaos that surrounded her upbringing. Unlike some of her siblings who faced heartbreak, divorce, or public tragedy, Gail's life unfolded quietly, on her own terms. Her connection to her father was real, but she never used it as a launchpad for lasting fame. Instead, she represents the side of celebrity family life that often goes unseen. The child who could have chased the limelight, but chose a quieter orbit. Dena Martin, born in 1948, was Dean Martin's fourth child, and the one who most fully stepped into the space her father left behind. From the beginning, Dena was surrounded by music, rehearsals, and famous house guests. But unlike some of her siblings who recoiled from fame, Dena embraced it, not as a shortcut, but as a craft she was determined to master. Trained in theater and music in London, she pursued a career in singing and acting with discipline and ambition. While her father was crooning to sold-out crowds in Vegas, Dena was studying vocals and learning the difference between imitation and identity. In the 1960s and 70s, she took on acting roles in both television and film and performed live, carving out her own name while honoring the one she inherited. But the Martin shadow was always there. Audiences compared her voice, her timing, even her facial expressions to her father's. Rather than run from that legacy, she leaned into it. In her later years, Dena became a steward of Dean Martin's memory. Her concerts paid tribute to the Great American Songbook and often included reimaginings of her father's most iconic hits. She published a memoir, Memories Are Made of This, offering a rare, heartfelt glimpse into life with a man adored by millions but known intimately by few. Offstage, Deana married producer John Griffith, and the two built a quiet, lasting life together, far removed from the dysfunction that often trails showbiz families. She never courted scandal, never collapsed under the weight of her last name. Instead, she became proof that being Dean Martin's daughter didn't mean living in his shadow. It could also mean carrying his rhythm forward. Dean Paul Martin Jr., born in 1951, was the golden boy of the Martin family. Handsome, athletic, talented, and for a time destined to become a bigger star than even his famous father. From the moment he stepped into public life, people took notice. As a teenager, he formed the pop group Dino, Desi, and Billy alongside Desi Arnaz Jr. and Billy Hinsche, scoring teen idol fame in the mid-1960s. For Dean Paul, nicknamed Dino by friends and fans alike, it was the beginning of a whirlwind life that seemed scripted for greatness. His father's fame opened doors, but it was Dean Paul's charisma that kept them open, whether on stage, on a tennis court, or in front of a movie camera. But while his peers chased celebrity, Dean Paul chased speed and purpose. He became a nationally ranked tennis player, then pivoted to acting in the late 70s, starring in TV series like Misfits of Science. Still, the spotlight never fully satisfied him. In the 1980s, Dean Paul joined the California Air National Guard and trained as a jet pilot, a path that earned respect beyond entertainment. Flying became more than a job. It was an escape from the pressures of being Dean Martin's son. His personal life, however, was marked by turbulence. He married actress Olivia Hussey in 1971, and they had one son, Alexander. The marriage didn't last, and his second marriage to Olympic skater Dorothy Hamill also ended in divorce. But nothing compared to what happened on March 21, 1987. While piloting an F-4 Phantom during a routine training mission, Dean Paul crashed into a mountainside in the San Bernardino Mountains. He was just 35. His death devastated the Martin family, especially his father, who was never the same after losing the son who seemed to carry both his name and his future. For all his talent and ambition, Dean Paul Martin Jr.'s life remains a striking example of the impossible balance between legacy and individuality. a life cut short while still in the process of becoming. Ricci Martin, born in 1953, was the sixth child of Dena Martin, and perhaps the one who tried hardest to turn their father's musical legacy into a shared language. Growing up in the golden haze of Beverly Hills, Ricci watched his father captivate the world with effortless charm, then tried to find his own voice in that echo. In the 1970s, Ricci stepped into music full-time, forming a band and later releasing a soft rock album titled Beached in collaboration with Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys, who would eventually become his brother-in-law. Though the album didn't reach major commercial success, it showed Ricci's determination to be more than just Dena Martin's son. Unlike some of his siblings who fled the stage, Ricci stayed close to it. He toured internationally, performed in clubs, and later created a tribute show called His Son Remembers. Dena Martin's Music and More, where he sang his father's hits alongside stories from their family life. It wasn't mimicry, it was a heartfelt bridge between past and present. In interviews and in his 2002 memoir, That's Amore, Ricci spoke candidly about the pressure of carrying the Martin name. He adored his father, but living up to his legend was exhausting. Fame was never just a gift, it was also a burden. Ricci's personal life reflected more peace than scandal. He married Annie Rasmussen and became a devoted father to three daughters, Pepper, Montana, and Rio. Pepper would later appear on the reality show Claim to Fame, introducing a new generation to the Martin family line. Ricci remained grounded, warm, and close to his roots until his unexpected death in 2016 at the age of 62. For all the weight that came with being Dena Martin's son, Ricci chose to carry it with grace. He didn't try to outshine his father, he simply kept the music going. Gina Martin, born in 1956, was Dena Martin's seventh child and the youngest daughter from his marriage to Jeanne. Unlike her siblings who stepped onto stages or into studios, Gina largely stayed behind the curtain. Raised in the glow of her father's stardom, she experienced the same lavish Hollywood lifestyle. Private schools, star-studded parties, famous house guests, but never seemed interested in making that world her own. While she dabbled briefly in acting during her youth, Gina made a conscious choice early on to preserve her privacy rather than pursue the spotlight. Her life took a different turn when she married Carl Wilson, co-founder and lead guitarist of the Beach Boys, in the early 1980s. It was a union that quietly merged two iconic musical legacies, the smooth crooner and the California surfer. Unlike many Hollywood pairings, their marriage remained private and devoted, lasting until Carl's death from cancer in 1998. Gina never capitalized on the fame of her father or her husband. She didn't tour, didn't write memoirs, and didn't speak publicly about life inside two legendary families. Instead, she disappeared almost entirely from the public eye. Gina Martin's life stands in stark contrast to the showbiz arc that shaped her upbringing. She was born into glamour, but never exploited it. Being Dena Martin's daughter didn't define her career. It defined what she avoided. In a family filled with singers, actors, and performers, Gina chose something quieter, a life of loyalty, love, and distance from the stage. And in doing so, she became the Martin child least touched by scandal, but perhaps most committed to personal peace. Sasha Martin, the youngest of Dena Martin's 8 children, entered the family not by birth, but through adoption, the daughter of Dean's third wife, Catherine Hahn, from a previous relationship. When Dean married Catherine in 1973, he legally adopted Sasha, bringing her into one of the most famous families in America. Unlike the children from his previous marriages, Sasha was raised during Dean's later years, a time when his career had already peaked and his desire for privacy had deepened. She didn't grow up on movie sets or in Vegas green rooms. Instead, she inherited a quieter, more withdrawn version of Dena Martin. A father still legendary, but more fatigued, more reclusive, and more haunted by personal losses. While her siblings had already made names for themselves in music, acting, or production, Sasha remained almost completely out of the public eye. She didn't enter showbiz, didn't give interviews, and rarely appeared in family retrospectives or biographies. The Martin name gave her instant recognition, but she never used it to build a brand. Her life has been so private that very little is known about her career, personal relationships, or even her whereabouts. A striking contrast to the media-saturated world she could have stepped into. For Sasha, being Dean Martin's daughter meant inheriting the legacy without the spotlight. No red carpets, no albums, no scandals. Just the quiet reality of growing up in the aftermath of a cultural icon. In many ways, she represents the closing chapter of Dean Martin's life. Private, distant, and far removed from the glamour that defined his earlier decades. Sasha didn't extend the Martin showbiz dynasty. She stepped away from it entirely. And in doing so, she became the final, quiet footnote to a family that once defined American celebrity. 8 children. Some followed the spotlight, some ran from it, some stood on stage beside their father, while others watched from the wings. They carried his name, but more than that, they carried the weight of a man beloved by millions and known fully by few. He gave them charm, music, and memories, but he also left behind unanswered questions, empty chairs, and the silence that only comes when the curtain finally falls. They didn't all seek his spotlight, but each in their own way kept his rhythm alive. If you found this breakdown powerful and want more deep dives into the hidden lives of Hollywood's forgotten children, subscribe to Legacy Uncovered. Your support brings these invisible stories to light. Thanks for listening.